Picturesque Oxford is set in the heartland of the British countryside, on the banks of two lovely rivers, the Isis and the Cherwell, which join here at Oxford to form the Thames. The city's rich history and magnificent architecture welcomes many visitors. Oxford's universities, some of the oldest in Europe, have produced many famous scholars, for example the world-famous explorer Sir Walter Raleigh. The character of this city has been shaped by centuries of history, its name first appearing in the Anglo-Saxon chronicle of the year 912. Since the 12th century, Oxford has grown as an intellectual centre and is now recognised worldwide for its achievements. The delicate cupola containing the statue of King George II's Queen Caroline dominates Queen's College. This college, with its elegant facades, was founded in 1340 by Robert de Egglesfield of Cumberland. Queen's has always had strong connections with the north of England, and many old customs have remained. The Boar's Head ceremony originated from the fact that many of its students, North Countrymen, were often unable to return home for Christmas. At New Year, the bursar presents each guest with a needle and thread and the words, "Take this and be thrifty." This magnificent piece of classical architecture, entirely rebuilt between 1671 and 1765, is the only college in Oxford of which none of the original buildings remain. Edmund Halley, the astronomer, was one of Queen's distinguished students. He's remembered as having observed the comet named after him in 1682 and accurately predicting that it would reappear in 1759. Tucked away in Merton Street are the impressive examination schools, and it is here, in full academic dress, that examinations take place, mainly between May and June. Full academic dress consists of the appropriate black gown, with a dark suit, white shirt and tie for men, and dark dress or skirt and blouse for women. Historically, undergraduates had to wear gowns for lectures, tutorials, interviews, chapel, meals in hall, and outdoors in the evening. This tradition is no longer maintained, although some colleges still require gowns in hall. The elegant facade of the examination schools was built between 1876 and 1882. You'll notice the date, 1881, depicted in the beautiful clock. Sir Thomas Jackson was the architect responsible for its Victorian Gothic design. The majestic Carfax Tower and gateway are all that remain of St. Martin's Church. It was once the city church where the townsfolk would gather in times of trouble and jubilation. The tower was originally higher than it is today, but the top section was removed to deter the townsfolk from throwing missiles on the guardsmen below. The clock's ornate quarter boys, known as Gog and Magog, can be seen to strike their bells every quarter of an hour. Oxford is very proud of its history, and tourists of all nationalities often gather at this busy crossroads, listening intently to specialist guides. These tours can be arranged through the nearby Tourist Information Office and are an ideal introduction to the history and architecture of Oxford. This dramatic Gothic building is the University Museum, built of red and brown stone in 1855. It houses natural history specimens together with entomology and mineralogy collections. Its treasures include a stuffed dodo, which inspired Lewis Carroll to use this bird in Alice in Wonderland. Majestic Christ Church College was founded in 1525 by Cardinal Wolsey. This splendid college is unique in the fact that its dean is the only college head appointed by the Crown. Wren's glorious Tom Tower houses the massive Great Tom Bell. It can be heard to ring out at 9:05 each evening 101 times, once for each of its original undergraduates. This was the time which they had to be home. Christ Church College is the only college that has a cathedral for a chapel. It may be England's smallest cathedral, but it's equally as charming. This marvellous college has an outstanding academic reputation, having produced no less than 13 prime ministers. Punting is a popular Oxford pastime, and not nearly as difficult as it looks. The main rules are to keep the pole as close to the boat as possible, and to let go if there's any chance of falling in. Someone will always help you retrieve your pole. In Oxford it is traditional when punting to stand in the sloping end of the boat. On a hot, sultry afternoon the river can be extremely tempting, and a leisurely boat trip through the shimmering trees is an authentic Oxford experience not to be missed. Boats can be hired at Magdalen Bridge on the River Cherwell. St Mary the Virgin Church, with its graceful tower and spire, is one of the most conspicuous landmarks in Oxford, being 188 feet high. For a small fee you can climb the narrow twisting staircase to the clock tower. St Mary's, which is the university church, dates from the late 13th century. The Renaissance-style porch, with its twisted pillars and statue of the Virgin and Child, was added in 1637. Its magnificent bells have not only summoned students to prayer, but also to do battle with the townsfolk in years gone by. In 1411 its doors were locked, and archers defended this majestic church against Arundel, Bishop of Canterbury. Today the church's quaint tea rooms offer the weary tourist a quiet refuge from the hustle and bustle of this busy city. The Radcliffe camera can be found in the charming cobbled square between the Old Schools and St Mary's Church. Dr. John Radcliffe bequeathed £40,000 for the building in 1749, which was designed by James Gibbs for use as a science library. The ground floor of arches and niches was originally an open space until the 1860s. Unfortunately, today this impressive building, which is now part of the Bodleian Library and used as a reading room, is closed to the public. The splendid Bodleian Library is one of Europe's oldest, dating from the 16th century. Today this fine library owns around 5 million books and more than 50,000 manuscripts, none of which are loaned out, no matter how influential the would-be borrower may be. Even Charles I and Oliver Cromwell were refused permission. It is one of 6 libraries which receives a copy of every book published and is ranked as one of the world's greatest. As you stroll around Oxford, you'll encounter numerous bookshops, quaint little ones selling antique and second-hand books, as well as larger establishments with vast selections of modern books. All Souls College, an extremely ornate college and one of the most elaborate in Oxford, is not merely a graduate college, but the crème de la crème of the academic world. It was founded in 1438 by Henry Chichell, Archbishop of Canterbury. As you admire the architecture in Oxford, look out for some of these fantastic stone animals, birds, angels and demons, which adorn the buildings. They are intricately carved from stone and can be quite fascinating. You'll often find them decorating the tops of Gothic buildings and towers. They're commonly known as gargoyles. The magnificent gate tower of Brasenose College was built in 1516 and features the college's impressive coat of arms. The attic story with its quaint dormer windows was added 100 years later in the 16th century. Brasenose was jointly founded in 1509 on the site of 9 older halls by William Smythe, Bishop of Lincoln, and Sir Richard Sutton. The college's very unusual name is derived from its treasured door knocker. This historical treasure dates from the 11th or 12th century and is composed of a face with a brass nose. In 1333, undergraduates took the door knocker away to Stamford, and it was only recovered in 1890. The original nose now hangs above the high table in the dining hall, but small copies can be found above the main doorway. The picturesque Bridge of Sighs, reminiscent of the famous Venice landmark, elegantly spans New College Lane, connecting the two parts of Hertford College. The majority of this delightful college is reasonably modern, although some of its history goes back to 1284, when it began life as Hart Hall. This name was used until 1740, when it was incorporated as a college by royal charter and became Hertford College. Life at Hertford is described in the book Brideshead Revisited by Evelyn Waugh, who was an undergraduate of this college. The Sheldonian Theatre is not in fact a theatre as the name may imply, but a ceremonial hall of the university. The degree ceremonies are held here at the end of the summer term. They are conducted in Latin and made colourful by the full academic dress of the participants. The Sheldonian Theatre was designed by Sir Christopher Wren and completed in 1669. Its roof, which spans 80 feet by 70 feet, is a masterpiece of engineering. The majestic emperor's heads that surround the theatre are only decorative, as they do not represent any one in particular. This beautiful college, Balliol, was founded by John de Balliol, a Scottish nobleman, as a penance for quarrelling with the Bishop of Durham. It's one of Oxford's oldest colleges, although very little of the original building remains. It was fashionably altered and rebuilt in the 18th and 19th centuries. This impressive neoclassical building, designed by Charles Cockerell, is the famous Ashmolean Museum. The university's magnificent archaeological and art collections are housed here, and Guy Fawkes' lantern, together with King Alfred's jewel, are two of its most celebrated treasures. The museum was built in the 1840s and is one of Britain's oldest museums. Magdalen's bell tower is world famous. It's from the top of this graceful tower at 6 o'clock on May Day morning that the college choir sings its hymn to spring. The crowds gather around Magdalen Bridge, and when the city bells ring out, morris dancing continues through the beautiful squares and streets of Oxford. This charming college was founded in 1458 and was one of the first to provide places for fee-paying students. Magdalen has always had strong connections with royalty and the aristocracy. Oscar Wilde was among the college's most famous students. It's from this rich setting that we depart from Oxford. Historic Cambridge, set on the southern edge of the Fens, is a compact, peaceful place. There's no one building that can be described as Cambridge University. It's a collection of colleges, libraries and museums. In Cambridge, the college buildings are set around courts, whilst in Oxford they're called quads. King's College has many different styles of architecture, which all complement that of the majestic chapel. Its pinnacles and windows are copied in the romantic neo-Gothic screen wall and gatehouse on King's Parade. The college's magnificent buildings, peaceful courts and ancient traditions are the hallmarks of Cambridge University. The skyline is dominated by King's College Chapel and was started in 1446 by Henry VI, but not completed until 70 years later. This exquisite chapel is not only famous for its architecture, but also for its choral music. Henry VI ordered that the choir consisted of 16 boys, and to date this tradition has been upheld. King's was founded in 1441 by Henry VI, and until 1870 only scholars from Eton were admitted. Oldham College was originally planned with a rector and 12 scholars, but in 1445 it was elaborated to provide a grander establishment for 70 scholars. On the fountain in front court, Henry VI's statue commemorates his connection with King's. King's Parade, with its quaint collection of shops, is much photographed. There are a mixture of styles dating from the 16th century and generally owned by the various colleges. These shops have changed considerably over the years with the addition of student accommodation above them, although they do appear to have retained their character. Until the 19th century, the opposite side of King's Parade would have looked very similar. That was until the beautiful screen wall of King's College was built. You'll find among these shops traditional outfitters and some older establishments which give Cambridge its atmosphere of elegance. The tea rooms here in King's Parade are a splendid place to rest and enjoy the English tradition of cream tea. Gonville and Caius College was built with 3 gates marking a path for its students to follow. They entered college through the gate of humility, walked the path to the gate of virtue, and left the college through this attractive gate, the gate of honour, to take their degree. Dr. John Caius, one of the college's joint founders, was responsible for its construction, and the college has always had strong connections with the medical sciences. In fact, William Harvey, who discovered the circulation of blood, was a graduate. The elegant Senate House is an appropriate setting for the degree ceremonies, when richly robed dignitaries appear in all their splendour. It was designed by James Gibb and built between 1722 and 1730. In the centre of the superbly manicured lawn is a bronze copy of the Warwick vase. A leisurely walk exploring the narrow streets and alleys can reveal much of Cambridge's hidden charm, although for many a guided walk is by far the best way to ensure all of its rich history is revealed. St. Mary's the Great Church is the University Church, and has not only been the place of worship for students, but was also the venue of degree ceremonies prior to the completion of Senate House. The present perpendicular building dates from the late 15th century to the early 16th century. 2 kings, Richard III and Henry VII, contributed towards its cost. Henry VII also gave the timber for its roof, which has been very finely preserved. Trinity, a royal college, was founded by 2 kings, and its master is elected by the Crown rather than the Fellows as in most colleges. This magnificent college is not only famous for its impressive buildings, but also for the number of poets and scientists it has produced, of which Sir Isaac Newton is possibly the most well known. In the gardens of Trinity is an apple tree which is a direct descendant of the one which set Newton thinking about the notion of gravitation. The architecture of St. John's College is some of the finest in Cambridge, dating from the early 16th century. It was founded by Lady Margaret Beaufort, Henry VII's mother, and her coat of arms decorates the impressive gate tower which incorporates the original 16th century oak doors. The beautiful Gothic chapel of St. John's College, with its imposing tower by Sir George Gilbert Scott, replaced the previous medieval chapel built on this site. This illustrious chapel, which is 193 feet long and 163 feet high, incorporates the 44 choir stalls and the tomb of Hugh Aston from the original medieval